Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So this is a pretty exciting one because we have a pretty big piece of news we've been waiting for a long time. And that is the announcement of the Avatar Book 1 soundtrack release. Finally happening, we will get to it. First, there are some other important things also to go through. So for anyone expecting Comic-Con news today, don't, but at the same time it feels like the news that we do have was meant to kind of come from here. But anyway, the details here are that the Braving the Elements panel was actually cancelled. It didn't go ahead, probably as expected. It seems like Janet Varney and Dante Bosco both didn't attend Comic-Con, and it made sense. They're both actors, so with the actors strike going on, they weren't going to be able to fulfill their roles here at this panel, so they just cancelled it. Because it's the Braving the Elements podcast panel, you don't have either host. There was no point going ahead with it. But like I said, I get the impression based on the timing of the Avatar soundtrack announcement that the soundtrack probably was meant to be announced kind of in coordination with this. This seems like a very kind of clear-cut thing, but it had to switch up to being a kind of just general kind of announcement online. But like I said, it happened during the hour that this panel was meant to take place, between 1 and 2. That's when like all the posts started going up. So interesting stuff there. Then FCE, I talked in my review and I think some of my news videos recently about how the acknowledgement at the end of Legacy of Yang Chen very much gives the impression that FCE is done with Avatar novels. That at the very least, he will not be doing book 5 if that ever gets confirmed. He at the very least is taking a break from Avatar, but is talking about it at least right now as he has done his time working on Avatar with these 4 books. And this post on Instagram, I think, very much doubles down on that. While I sit beside a great sense of completeness and relief, to paraphrase Tenzin, the cycle of the Avatar will always begin anew. Thank you all so much. You have to interpret this as, I'm done, a new writer will kind of come on board. Because I don't think Chronicles of the Avatar is done. It so far has technically only properly applied to Yang Chen because it was retroactively added onto the Kyoshi novels. They just kind of came out, and then in between book series we found out about Chronicles of the Avatar. So I don't think there's any way they're wrapping that up after just 2 avatars. Why go through the effort of creating an overall series in that case? You know, amazing work from FCE. You know, he'll always be the first Avatar author who showed us that Avatar novels can work, but I do think it is probably a good thing for the franchise going forward that we do kind of get new writers on board and just highlight that other people can write Avatar novels, and that getting different kind of types of stories from different writers is a good and needed thing, rather than just forever just having one writer writing every single thing. But, you know, hopefully at the Comic-Con panel we get some sort of an announcement. FCE is going to be in attendance. So, I don't know. Is it just going to be talking about Legacy? If he is going to talk along the same lines of this as like he is done, I do think you probably do need to make it clear to people that even though the writer is finished on the books, that the series is not done. So you, I think at the very least, have to allude to the idea of a book 5 coming eventually, even if there's maybe no announcement to be had coming up. But yes, the publishing panel on Saturday does seem to still be going ahead, so that should be where we get our news from in terms of books and comics and stuff like that. And then the final thing before the soundtrack is just that do also keep in mind that tomorrow, on Friday, July 21st, Avatar Generations will have their next stream where they go over what is going to be upcoming into the game. Now, I don't think we know specifically what they're going to talk about here, but obviously there's some pretty big stuff coming up into the game. The early access anniversary is coming up. We know that there is at least, I think, 1 or 2 Aang updates that are going to come out before the next Kyoshi update. We also know that there's characters like Azula, Mei, Ty Lee that are coming to the game sooner rather than later. And I think there's a little bit of excitement building that this might be a kind of slightly bigger kind of live stream here. Because the last one I didn't think was super enlightening, but I also don't think they had too much of an update to talk about. Now I think there's maybe a little bit more of a sense where like they have a kind of clear-cut plan for the next kind of really important kind of chunk of time. So hopefully this one delivers and it kind of comes across as like the Generations kind of Comic-Con panel almost, because of the timing of it. So just keep that in mind if you are a fan of the game. There could be some interesting stuff at this. I'll probably do a video tomorrow covering this if it is anything interesting. But yes, what you're all here for. Avatar: The Last Airbender soundtrack has been confirmed. Specifically, as you can see here, it is the Book 1 Water soundtrack. So here is the press release. I think initially this was posted just on Twitter is what most people saw. Someone at Comic-Con mentioned this, who I think was as a writer for one of the bigger publications. So it seems like some of the bigger publications got a press release that obviously had some sort of a time on it when they could post about it. And so these just kind of casually went up, and that like this article here is literally just a press release, obviously. So Nickelodeon and Republic Records Kids and Family announced the long-awaited release of the specific name of the product is, of course, Avatar: The Last Airbender Book 1 Water, music from the animated series. So a very art book style name here. Art of the animated series, music of the animated series. On digital and vinyl. This album, featuring an updated and re-recorded score from the first season of the series, is now available to pre-order and will be released in November. So release in November. First single, Aang Becomes Ocean, releasing Friday, July 28th. So we're getting one of the tracks at the very least next week. That's very, very exciting. So this is obviously, I guess, the Koizilla scene from the finale. Very emotional, memorable track. So excited for that. Yeah. Jeremy Zuckerman, who composed it, has expanded his original compositions and employed a full orchestra for this product. The album artwork was created by Brian, so that's very good. And then this is just what Avatar is. Now they mentioned down here, there's a link down here to this, what is this thing again? This is pre-save you music, and it has like links to Spotify and Apple Music. I don't think they go anywhere at the moment. You have to be logged in and stuff like that. I don't think I am. But that is something that is there if you are interested. I'll link this article if it means anything to you guys in the description. But we'll move from there into Jeremy Zuckerman's post about this on Instagram, because this is kind of what we were waiting for. He's been kind of teasing, trying to make this happen. It's finally happened. He, of course, has acknowledged this as well. So coming in November from Republic Records, artwork by Brian Konietzko, digital and on vinyl, of course. Around 80 minutes of music. So that gives you a sense for, I suppose, how many tracks there are going to be. You know, typically for this, like, tracks are like what? Some of them could be like a minute and a half, 2-3 minutes. So like the average is probably maybe like 3-ish minutes. So there's probably somewhere in the region of maybe like 30 tracks or something like that on this, 20 something, depending on length. Double vinyl, a bunch of extended and developed tracks recorded with orchestra. So all the stuff that the press release kind of roughly mentions. Thanks a bunch of people involved in actually making this happen. And he's very excited about it, of course. So pre-order details, which is what we've been waiting for here, coming soon. Because again, the press release also says that it is now available to pre-order, but there's no listings up at the moment. Now, one final thing you might miss if you just focus on the main details here is just that Brian posted about this in the comments on the Jeremy Zuckerman post. So dream come true. Thank you for the music, of course. Brian, of course, super into his music. And of course, this is a big deal for him as well. If you listen to the kind of podcast interview they did to coincide with a con like a year or two ago, you'll know that like Mike and Brian, as well as Jeremy Zuckerman, are super passionate about making the soundtrack happen. So it seems like they're all delighted that this is finally happening. But if you scroll down, Brian responded to someone else. So someone asks, we need the Korra Book 3 soundtrack too. And Brian says, agreed, books 2 to 4 and all 4 on vinyl. And then adds in, we're hoping to make that happen eventually, referring to the Korra soundtracks. But first, we're focusing on getting ATLA out there in a big way. So I think for a lot of people who, I think they saw this and was like, okay, very, very exciting, but it's only the book 1 soundtrack. It's not the full ATLA soundtrack. We all know what happened with Korra. The book 1 soundtrack came out, and then there was no book 2, 3, or 4 soundtrack. They gave up on it. What's to say something like that doesn't happen this time? Well, they have much more of the confidence of the higher-ups, and I think the fact that this has finally happened, and the first one is happening, means that I think they are pretty much behind the scenes confirmed for the other ones, but I am guessing because they have re-recordings to do on that stuff, they're not ready to fully announce that because the work on it isn't done. But the idea is, of course, with multiple releases to do, like theoretically 6 or 7 releases, depends on if they're going to do book 1 again. By the sounds of things, maybe they're considering like not doing book 1 because they've already done it. But still, 6 new releases, you know, they're not going to drop that all at once. People only have so much money, so you have to spread out the releases a little bit to let each one kind of breathe. But this should give you confidence that this is a big deal. This one will lead to book 2. I think at the very least the 3 Avatar ones will happen, and then we'll find out afterwards what they're doing with Korra. But I would be very confident that all of this stuff actually will happen. Avatar Studios, I think, is a big thing, and while maybe we haven't seen the results of that a lot these days, I think this is probably where just them having the confidence of having a full studio means that stuff like this won't get cancelled halfway through. So I feel like Brian even mentioning this here feels like, okay, Korra is at least something being mentioned, and because they might not have to do as much work on these recordings compared to Avatar, they might be easier to release as well. But maybe by the time they get to them, it's 10 years since Korra ended. Will they want to do some of that stuff again? Perhaps. Who knows? But it's nice that both got mentioned, both series soundtracks. But for now, we are focused on book 1, which is exciting by itself. So a lot of the absolute classics, I suppose, are going to be included here. But yeah, we are now just waiting for kind of pre-order information. It is interesting, though, like the decision that they've made here, where it's clearly they're doing vinyl as the physical release, and then so far digitally on Spotify and Apple Music. So no like CD release, which feels kind of weird to even say these days, but I guess vinyl is sort of the bigger thing for physical in a way these days, I believe. So I don't know. It's one of those ones I want to see the product listing before I fully commit to what exactly I want to do here. But like, if there is even any sort of like bonus content here where like there's maybe extra art on the inside, or like there is a little kind of like interview style thing included in it, like just extra features with the physical release, it's going to make it interesting. And I wonder, has any effort been made to kind of really make it a kind of actual kind of collector's piece for more than just, you know, there is a physical way to get the music type thing? Because I know people like are going to be all over this in a way. Like, I personally don't have a record player, so I don't know, maybe that's something to look into between now and November. But super exciting. This has been years in the making. As someone who's covered the news, and that has included quite a few times of Jeremy Zuckerman teasing this but not being able to confirm it. Obviously, in the last year or so, it's felt like literally we've been waiting for this day, the day where they can finally say this is a product, you can pre-order it now, and it's finally here. So, you know, whatever way you want to frame it as, it's like, what, 15 years since ATLA ended, 18 years since the start of the show. It's huge, absolutely huge that this is finally happening. Like, because you have to say, the music is probably the most universally loved aspect of both shows, both Avatar and Korra. I don't think there's many people who dislike the music at all. This should do very well, and I hope it does well, and they can confirm all the different books of Avatar and Korra, and that this sets the standard as we go forward, because we're thinking like when the 2025 movie comes out, they have to have that soundtrack ready to go so that people can have that music immediately. No more messing around where like we have to wait 10, 15 years for these things to finally get a release. do it immediately with your new content. And I think Avatar Studios existing shows us the confidence that is present. So exciting times, definitely, that this is finally happening. So hopefully in the next couple of days we get an update on this. You know, perhaps tomorrow when I maybe do a video on the Generations update, the pre-orders will have gone live and I can cover it tomorrow. But just be aware of that. So yeah, wrapping up the video, what are your thoughts on the cancellation of the Braving the Elements panel? FCE's very much clear-cut goodbye at this point. Generations stream with potentially big information, and then of course the soundtrack at last confirmed. What are your thoughts on all of this? But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.